I'm very conscious of the length of my film, so I'm going to try and be quick, but I don't know how quick I can be. We're still on chicken. Tonight it's a risotto. The only thing you need to know for risotto, the basic thing, is 100 grams of risotto rice to 500 ml of liquid stock, whatever. So for 4 people, 300 grams is enough for a main course once you start adding everything extra in. Tonight I am making a chicken risotto because this video series is all about chicken. I just want to show you the stock that I made yesterday. Can you see how lovely and jelly that is? So in terms of the stock, I'm only going to make enough for 2. In fact, there's only one of me eating it, but I can make arancini with the leftovers, but that's just an aside. So I'm going to do 500 ml of my lovely chicken stock. Then I have soaked porcini mushrooms, just a small handful. They're quite potent, in 300 ml, 5, 6, 7, 8, yes, that's right. So I'm actually doing 800 ml. I always make a little bit extra because you do want your stock sloppy, not your stock, your risotto. People go wrong with risotto, and I watch all these cooking programs and competitions, and they serve this risotto that just looks stodgy and disgusting. It is supposed to be quite loose and runny, and that you can taste every single grain of rice separately. So I've got the porcini mushrooms that have soaked in boiling water. I'll squeeze the water out. That will get added to the stock. Other ingredients. So we're going to have bacon in it tonight. You would normally always cook a risotto in butter, but I am going to gently cook some pancetta. I've got shallots. So I've done about 2 of this size banana shallot. Mushrooms, including the porcini mushroom. The risotto rice, buy the best possible risotto rice that you can afford. This one that has been gifted to me many times over by one lovely lady, is fantastic, but it's £10 a kilo, which is expensive. You would normally cook a risotto, the rice at the early stages in butter, but as we're talking about chicken, this is the schmaltz that we drained off the pan the other day. So I'm going to use the schmaltz instead of butter, which is just going to give it that extra chicken push. I've got white wine because that has to go in to add some acidity. Then to finish, I've got, oh sorry, it's under a cover. I've got the chicken leg and chicken thigh and what do they call, wings. I'm going to use half of this tonight. I'm going to use the other half tomorrow to make a ramen. So we'll finish with the chicken thigh and leg brown meat. I've got some sugar snap peas, which are also going to get stirred in the end. You can see I've cut them on the bias if I was a fashionista. They will add colour and crunch. I don't use butter to finish my risotto because it is just butter on butter. It's very fattening. Trust me, if you've followed any of my recipes, you know I love butter. But I finish my risottos with creme fraiche and parmesan. For tonight's dish, I've added whatever herbs I could get hold of. Ideally, I would have liked tarragon in here, but I haven't got tarragon, so it's parsley and chives. I'm also going to add some lemon zest at the end. I think that's all the ingredients. We can get going with cooking. Starting with the pancetta, I'm using half a pack of pancetta. That's going in, and the way I like to cook pancetta, other people do it different ways. You could use bacon. I like to cook it on a very low light to release all the fat, because I don't actually like to eat fat, so I like to melt the fat. I'm ready to go. The pancetta, you can see, has all the fat has melted off. It's on the lowest light. The most important thing with a risotto is you can't rush it. The next thing I'm going to put in is the onions or shallots. very finely diced. I might just turn the heat up a little bit to cook those. I'm also, at this point you would add your butter. I'm going to add my schmaltz. Look at that, pure chicken flavour. That's going in the pan. Going to melt that down and cook the onions for a minute or two until they're soft. Next going in the pan are the porcini mushrooms, and I'm going to give them about 30 seconds before I put in the rest of the mushrooms. Rest of the mushrooms going in, and again I'm going to give them, I really want to cook those down because they will have lots of water in them. So I'm going to turn the heat right up actually and get the water out of the mushrooms that have gone in. So I'm going to cook these for maybe 4 to 5 minutes along with everything else. I just want to say I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I've never cooked this before. All of my recipes are available on the website. There are loads of risotto recipes. The pea risotto is the one that has all of the instructions about the basics of making a risotto with the ratio and everything else. Most of my recipes are written in full on the website, so please feel free to subscribe. Mushrooms have been cooking for about 4 minutes. Taste your stock. It's just about right. I had 800 ml of stock. I used a teaspoon of salt. You have to bear in mind that the pancetta is salty and that we're going to finish it with some parmesan, which is also salty. And then of course you can still add seasoning at the end. Next thing to go in is your risotto rice. And you want to stir that so it gets thoroughly coated with all the juices. I am actually keeping the heat on a medium high because I do kind of want to toast the rice a little bit. I don't know why, I think I've said this before, I must have read it somewhere years ago, I do always make a risotto with a wooden spoon. Still on a medium to high heat on a small ring, I'm now going to add the wine. I can't give you measurements, I'm just going to do a glug. And as soon as I pour the wine in, I am going to drop it right down to the lowest setting. So this is the first stage of cooking your risotto. To help you, you can set a timer now for 30 minutes because it should be perfect after 30 minutes of cooking and stirring. So I'm just going to let the wine bubble off and be absorbed, and then we'll start adding the stock. If you don't want to use wine and you are burning off all the alcohol, but some people don't want to use wine, you can just add extra lemon juice at the end. It is really important to have some acidity. The stock needs to be hot, which we did. I've tasted it, it's salty. You're adding the equivalent of a ladleful at a time. So I'm just doing a tiny bit at a time. I'm sure you've seen in all the recipes that you've seen and everything else, you cannot rush a risotto. Somewhere on my website, I'm not sure where, there are tips on how you can actually make risotto in advance, which is all very clever. So you're just going to now, for the next 30 minutes, just add the stock very slowly, keep stirring. The stirring will release the starch in the rice, and each rice grain will stay separate. So I'm actually going to cut off here and we will come back in half an hour after I found my clicker. I'm just checking in with you. I'm about 15 minutes in, and it reminded me to remind you to not rush it. You might look at it and you might think it's not cooking, but it is. This is still on a low light. This is on a low light. I am stirring and stirring. It needs at least 30 minutes. Also, what I found with the more expensive risotto rice, it can take 35 to 40 minutes, but I will show you how to test and make sure that you've got the taste right, but you're not going to make porridge. This is where having a feel for what you're cooking becomes important. If you were using supermarket carnaroli rice, it would have cooked in 30 minutes. I used this rice, which is kind of the Rolls Royce of it. In fact, there's plenty of rices even more special than this, but it has taken 35 minutes, and it is all about tasting and testing as you go. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to first of all just taste the rice. It's delicious. What you're looking for is if you take a grain of rice and rub it between your fingers, oops, you will get one tiny little nugget, and that's okay. Let me take that out because that's going to be very hot. I am going to put one last glug of chicken stock in because you want it to be watery. The chicken is going in to warm through because that will take the longest to warm. So I'm going to warm that chicken for a couple of minutes, which is why I wanted to use the brown meat. It's succulent and moist and will take well to reheating. The chicken should be nice and warm now. I'm going to stir in the creme fraiche, parmesan and herbs. And that's quite cold, so again you're going to need time to just warm that through. I've also got chopped sugar snap peas. I've got some lemon zest. That is completely optional, but I love to finish with lemon zest. It is that sort of lovely sourness that makes a dish sing. But it goes in right at the end. Give it all a good stir and let it sit for a minute and absorb the flavours and warm through, and then we will serve it up. It's done. Gorgeous, sloppy chicken and bacon risotto. There we go. I also had left over from the last few meals which you've watched. I've got some rocket, so I'm just going to put a little pile of rocket on the top. I've got some crusty French bread to have with it. I probably won't eat it because I'm still trying to watch my picker. And there you have it, the delicious risotto. All the recipes and risotto tips are on my website. I'm doing one little film to show you how saucy the risotto is. It is not gluggy and like porridge. There is plenty. Do not be afraid of the slop.